Hi guys, I'm back from Israel, so it's time to do the answers video finally. I'm finally getting round to it. So without any further ado, let's crack on. The Alex Gia says, do you think that 3D metal printing will eventually, as once it gets cheaper and more individuals own them, mean that all gun control is practically unenforceable due to the ease of manufacturing of high quality firearms in people's own homes with no skill required? No, basically. That's a fairly easy one. But of course, the components to make guns can't really be 3D printed very easily. Of course, if you got to the stage where you had your own sort of steel kiln in your house and you could sort of produce stuff that way, then yeah, sure, you could do that. But the thing is, that technology already exists, and there's a good reason why people don't have it, and it's because to have something like that, you need some sort of, you know, it's a major operation, it costs a huge amount of money. I mean, sure, the 3D printer might be cheap, I guess, in principle, but to actually have the facility to melt steel and do all that sort of stuff, I just don't see it happening really. Not when you consider that in a little workshop, I mean, even just a shed like this, you know, a few bits of pipe and stuff, you could make a shotgun or, you know, something fairly crude to fire a rimfire round or whatever. So, no, I don't think it'll make much difference. And of course, ammunition, and that's the fundamental, isn't it, really? Everyone can have as many guns as they like, but if I haven't got any ammo to actually shoot in them, they're going to struggle, aren't they, really? So, there we are. George Burley says, which is your favourite or best type of shotgun? Double-barreled, side-by-side or over and under, semi-auto or pump action? Well, depends what it's for, but for what I do, I would say an over and under, to be honest. So I don't personally get on very well with side-by-sides. I tend to find the cant is very flat, and that doesn't suit me. And I don't like how light they are. I don't like the fact that your hands curl around the barrels when you're shooting them. So nice big heavy side-by-side, over and under, sorry, suits me down to the ground. In terms of practical shooting and stuff, I generally prefer using a pump. I've never really got on with semi-autos. I don't like the mechanicalness of the feeling of something moving as you're shooting. And I guess doing practical doesn't matter so much, but certainly pigeon shooting, feeling something move, I really don't like that. Although, yeah, sure, if I practiced, I'd almost certainly get used to it, so it's just my personal preference. Smug Barbecue, he says, would you care to share your opinion on the legalisation of cannabis for medical and recreational use? You don't have to. Okay. Well, I think that comes under a general thing, really. My general philosophy is fairly libertarian. I'm not an absolute libertarian in the sense of no taxation and no government and all that sort of thing, but what I would describe as, I would say I was a sort of social libertarian. So basically, I think as long as you're not doing harm to other people, whatever that activity is, you should be allowed to do it. And if there is a potential risk involved in that activity to other people, then that activity being legal is the only way you could ever effectively regulate it. So for instance, you know, cannabis is, you know, it's relatively harmless, you know, certainly compared to alcohol. But, you know, you could argue maybe that somebody could start selling it to kids or something. But of course, the only way to stop that is for it to be legal. If it's not legal, then how are you going to police that? How, you know, the drug dealers aren't going to be IDing kids, saying, well, no, you're too young. They're not going to care. But if it's legal and there's a premises that sells that, then of course, you know, you can deal with that. But for me personally, right across the board, I mean, whatever people want to do, you know, it's, I mean, obviously things like heroin and stuff, it's a more complicated subject. I've got opinions on that which I can't really go into now because it would take too long about how we treat those sorts of people, but I certainly think certain drugs should be treated as a health problem and people should be helped. Recreational drugs, yeah, I mean, have at it. It's up to you, isn't it, really? It's nobody else's business, is it? So, you know, that's my view. I don't think laws should ever be moralising about behaviour. If people want to have sex in some strange way, or they want to smoke weed, or they want to do whatever, that's their business, as long as they don't harm anyone, and if anybody else involved in whatever that activity is consents, then, well, it's just nobody else's business, really. So, that's me. The Pigeon Fishing Channel says, who is your shooting idol? Yeah, now that's a difficult. I wouldn't say I have an idol. I don't tend to be the sort of person who idolises other people, but I do have a lot of admiration for obviously George Digweed. I think he doesn't get anything like the recognition he deserves. When you think that people like Lewis Hamilton get the BBC Personality of the Year, or he did do last year, I think, he doesn't even pay for his licence fee because he doesn't live here. He doesn't pay any taxes, and yet benefits from his sort of Englishness and has all this advertising and stuff and all the stuff that goes on. He gets it, but someone like George Digweed, who is without a doubt the most successful athlete, I suppose you'd call him, even though he's got a bit of a belly, that Britain's ever produced. I mean, he is an amazing shot. All these world championships he's won, and he doesn't get any recognition. So I have a lot of admiration for him. Other than that, no, nobody really. As I said, I don't tend to idolise people, to be honest. Anyway, Gus Cameron says, what calibre do you have on your FAC, and what is your next gun you're getting? Well, on my FAC at the moment, I've got my Winchester SXP pump, and I also have my Browning T-Bolt in 2.2 long rifle. I do have a 243 down, which I plan to get at some point. I do have a 2.2 semi-automatic down, so I'm tempted by one of those Lantac rifles, you know, the AR-15 type rifles for practical shooting, and maybe lamping could be good for that. But I don't know yet, if I'm honest, so things may change, but that's where I am at the moment. Ritaka 100 says, 10,000 questions is more fitting, don't you agree? It's not really a question, is it really? But okay. Oh god, this guy, I think he's possibly Thai, because going on the alphabet his name's made from, I can't really tell you what his name is. It doesn't, I don't know, but he seems a nice chap, and he's got a picture of a Viking as an avatar, so we'll go from there. He says, what do you think can be done, politically or otherwise, to make shooting a more accepted and less restricted hobby? Also, would you like to see shooting and gun ownership become a common thing again? Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? We don't really have very much of a gun culture here in the UK. We need to encourage more young people. All of you guys out there, you know, it's your responsibility to a certain extent to get other people into shooting as much as you can. It's good to get out in the media. That's part of what I'm doing. That's what I hope to do, is to make shooting more accessible to people and try and make people understand that it's not just a load of weirdos who go shooting, it's just normal people. I know English Shooting's really big on that, you know, that's one of the main missions of his channel, which is great. So, stuff like that really. It is very difficult in the UK, there's a lot of ingrained attitudes, the media's very hostile, especially the BBC, but maybe things can change. I don't know, hopefully, I mean, all it comes down to is weight of numbers. More of us do it, the more normal and acceptable it will be. So, maybe, we'll see. Kevboy63 says, artist and name of music at the start of your videos, please, thanks. Well, I can't give you the artist a name, because I don't know, but it's from one of the themes in iMovie 10, and I can't remember which one off the top of my head, but by all means have a look. iMovie 10, that's where it's from. Shooter Down Under asks, if you had a chance and enough cash, which countries would you like to visit and hunt in? Well, that's almost two questions, but if you're going to reference it purely based on shooting, then I would like to go to various places in Eastern Europe, Romania and Bulgaria, to name but two, mostly for boar and deer. I'd quite fancy to go shooting on Australia and shoot kangaroos. Tom, you all know, he's done that, and he had a great time. Other than that, well, I mean, there's lots and lots of options out there. You'd be better off really asking me what sort of shooting I'd like to do. But yes, there's lots of places. I'm actually possibly going to be heading to Eastern Europe next year. So keep your eye out for that, because there may be some exciting videos that will come out of that. So we shall see. Shooter Down Under asks, oh no, that's what you just, sorry, that's the same one again. Funky Prepper, hello Funky. I do know you, my friend. He says, congratulations Sam, well done my mate. The only thing that I need sorting advice on, sorting is advice on foxes. I'm not a section 1 or 2 licence holder due to the wife's hate for guns. Foxes are causing havoc in towns and cities, and not everyone can own a firearm for all sorts of reasons. Any advice on traps or deterring them would be brilliant. I've heard about pissing on the garden to mark my territory, as it were, but not too sure whether to believe it or not, or not, to be honest. Anyway, enough flannel. Well done again, buddy. So, hello, Funky. Love your channel, mate. So it's great to have a question from you. I don't think peeing is going to cut it, if I'm honest, especially with urban foxes, because the problem with urban foxes is they've become used to human beings. They see us all the time. They come and eat people's bins and things, and they're becoming more and more friendly, which means effectively hostile, because that means they get closer to you. And you know, you hear stories about them coming into people's houses and stuff. I don't think they'd do very well if they came into my house, if I'm honest. But yeah, it's a problem. The biggest piece of advice I could give you, or anybody living in the city, would be to secure your bins, basically. Don't leave rubbish lying out. For Christ's sake, don't feed foxes. And if any of your neighbours do, just tell them to stop doing that, because it's really, really stupid. And it's really helpful for the foxes themselves as well, because, you know, as they come into the cities more, they will be interacting with each other more. They'll be coming across things that can poison them and affect the population. So if you actually care about foxes and the health of foxes generally, you shouldn't really be wanting to encourage them to come into the cities. But in terms of getting rid of them, well, as a boy, here where I am now, we used to keep hens and ducks, and we used to but fairly regularly, we would have a fox would get into the garden, and it would take a load of chickens. We used to have this big fat duck called Dennis, and he went through about 3 different wives. He kept getting eaten by the fox, but he never got eaten, strangely. It was almost like he was so big the fox couldn't quite get his gums around him. But the way we dealt with that is we would find the gap in the fence that the fox would poke its head through and get into the garden. And my dad would set up a humane snare, which is a sort of snare made out of sort of like a wire rope, so it doesn't kind of hurt the fox, it just pulls tight. And then you would put it very carefully, so as I said, when the fox puts its head through, it would catch it. And what generally happens is, after that, the fox will writhe about a bit and get pissed off, and then eventually it just gives up. And then you go out in the morning and it's just sat there. Now, as a rule of thumb, my dad would then get his 410, go up to the fox about 5-10 yards away and just shoot it, basically. But one of the things he would also do after shooting it is he would get the garden fork and he would drive it into its rib cage down here, before he put it on the compost heap, just to make sure it was definitely dead, because, you know, you don't want to accidentally injure something or find that you've just like clipped it and it's not killed it properly. So what I would say is, Funky, if you don't have a shotgun or a rimfire, if you've got the balls, you could try that. Snare it, don't shoot it, just walk up to it with the garden fork and drive it through its rib cage. It will work, as long as you get it about here. It's just as good as shooting it, to be honest. That will go straight through its heart and lungs and it will be a goner. But you'll probably have to have bigger balls than me to attack that, because it won't like it. But that's an option, anyway. Zach Walsh, he asks, congratulations, could you please recommend me a good semi-auto shotgun for under £500? Well, obviously Hatsan have lots of offerings for less than that, brand new in fact. From what I've seen and read, they're okay. They seem to be a bit susceptible to certain parts failing that don't tend to fail on you know, Bretters and things. If you're looking at the second-hand market, then there's loads of options. The Bretta A302 is a great gun. Pretty much any old Bretta semi-auto will do the job, and it will just run and run and run, and you shouldn't have any problems. As I said, I'm not a fan of semi-autos, but there's lots of options out there. Just buy a reputable brand, basically. Oh God, I couldn't pronounce this name. Cragath Bag Braggle says, opinion on Nigel Farage, Donald Trump and Tony Abbott. That's a good question. I'm going to have a fag now. Now, I need this to get through this. Don't smoke, it's really bad for you, just to clarify. Anyway. Pretty light up. Yeah, they have a bit in common, don't they? They're very similar kind of characters in a lot of ways. Donald Trump is particularly difficult. He's doing very well at the moment, isn't he, in the presidential race for the Republican Party in the States at the moment. I mean, he is like miles ahead of everyone else. I think we'll find when it gets to the end, various other people in the Republican Party will catch up and overtake him, because this always happens, doesn't it? It happens every time they have a race. So, you know, I wouldn't put too much. You know, I wouldn't bet a lot of money on him becoming the leader of the Republican Party. But he's very outspoken, isn't he? And he's self-funded, as far as I can gather. It's unfortunate that he's got some fairly strange opinions, but they are his opinions, and that's why he's popular. Same can be said for Nigel Farage or Tony Abbott. They basically speak from the heart. And if somebody speaks from the heart and with passion, and they believe it, that counts for a hell of a lot, especially in the climate we've got these days, where all of our politicians pretty much are bought and paid for by vested interests. In the States, for instance, we had George Bush before. He was basically being propped up by the oil industry and the arms industry. Now you've got Barack Obama. He's being propped up by Big Pharma. That's why every time there's a mass shooting, he never talks about the pharmaceutical industry and the problem that these people are mental because they're taking all these drugs. You know, I mean, it's all bollocks, basically. You know, these people are like puppets. They're not real people. Any opinion that you would hear from them if you met them in real life, it's not what they would say on TV. However, Nigel Farage, Tony Abbott, and Donald Trump do say what they think. So love them or hate them, that counts for a lot, and that's why they're popular. So that's what I think, anyway. Do you remember, asks, how and what do you use to sharpen your knives? I'm trying to find the best way to sharpen mine, as I've never done so before. Also, just wanted to thank you for your excellent video content. Oh, thanks, mate. At the moment, I use a Spyderco Sharpmaker. If you look in my channel under reviews, I think I did a review of that. It's a great knife. Great knife, great sharpener, should I say? Because it holds the stones like that at the right angle, and then all you've got to do is vertically go up and down. However, there's another type of knife sharpener that I've been looking at recently. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but basically it's like a little belt sander, and it's got this bit of plastic that puts the different angles on for you, and you can use it to sharpen like axes and things, as well as or scissors, as well as knives. And that thing looks epic. It's only about £80, and of course you don't have to worry about spending lots of money on stones because it just uses belts, and they're a lot cheaper. If I can find, I know Skallagrims did a review of it, so if I can find a link to his video, I'll put it in the description. So yeah, that's what I use. Because knife sharpening, yeah, is a real pain. It can be very difficult. Joe Randella says, I would say ask, but he says, first view and like. Oh, great. Oh no, he has a question though. What's your opinions on large game such as Bear in North America and the Big Five game in Africa? I myself will never hunt this game unless necessary, but still think others should have the right to hunt them if they wish. Well, I did do a video on Cecil the Lion, so that probably lays out my feelings, to be honest, on that subject. Bear hunting, if I'm perfectly honest, I don't know enough about it to kind of to sort of give you a real major opinion. I guess there's need to cull them in certain areas because they become a problem to people and to, I guess, I don't know, some livestock maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have a problem as long as it's sustainable. And certainly big game in Africa, well, that's an entire industry. And without that industry, those animals would be poached to, you know, extinction, basically. And it's all very well for these antis kind of complaining about it, and they see a fluffy lion or whatever, and they feel, oh no, you know, isn't it look terrible that somebody shot this lion? Well, unless you've got an alternative that makes money, that makes it sustainable for those animals to be, you know, put into the environment, then shut up really, to be honest, it works. So that's, yeah, I don't have a problem with it, to be honest. Irish Field Sports asks, what changes, if any, would you like to see to firearms law? It's interesting to compare yours to ours here in the Republic of Ireland. We're currently fighting against more restrictions. Yeah, I've heard about that. Apparently you're getting a semi-auto rifle and pistol ban coming in similar to ours. I haven't really heard much about it recently, so I don't know how far along that's become. I think in England, it's a difficult situation, really. I think some of our laws are a bit strange with Section 1 and Section 2, because, for instance, rimfire rifles, I think, should be Section 2, because, yeah, for sure, I guess the thinking with them all having to be Section 1 isn't to do with the lethality, but it's to do with the responsibility of the person firing them. And it's true to say that a shotgun, you know, if you shoot a shotgun accidentally into the air, it's not going to hurt anyone. You shoot a rimfire into the air by accident, you'll kill someone a mile away, maybe. But at the end of the day, whatever the firearm is, if it's a powder-burning firearm of some description, then you need to be very responsible anyway and should be knowing what you're doing. And so I don't really see the problem, really, to be honest. I can see an argument for having centre-fire maybe a bit more restricted. But in terms of what actually you can actually have, I would say whatever you like. Because at the end of the day, you know, if your only way of stopping people going on a mass shooting or whatever is by restricting the tools they use to do it, or, you know, making them illegal, then you're already on a bad path there, aren't you, really? Because you're not really addressing the problem. If somebody can be demonstrated to be responsible and they go through the appropriate paperwork, etc., then, yeah, I mean, if somebody wants an AR-15 or they want, you know, an 223 or they want a handgun, well, they should be allowed that. I can't see an argument against it, really. I mean, you know, after the Dunblane thing and stuff, for instance, you know, if you wanted to make it, you know, stricter, you know, you have to go to a course or something to have the gun, stricter health, you know, mental health checks or something. Yeah, you know, we can all discuss that. But actually banning things, I think, is very unhelpful, and I don't think it really addresses, you know, addresses the problem. So there we go. Bam asks, would you like to see Section 5 weapons like semi-auto rifles and pistols to be allowed into Section 1 FAC for us responsible FAC owners? Yeah, Bam, I've just answered that question for you, haven't I, really? Yeah, I would. I would say that they should be. Yeah, I don't see why policemen, for instance, who become firearms officers, are considered kind of like untouchable in terms of like there's just no risk of them ever doing anything irresponsible, and responsible firearms owners are considered not to be responsible enough, because, you know, having, you know, I don't be careful what I say now, but having known people talk about how the police train with firearms, they're not the safest, if I'm honest. They don't get enough range time. They have a tendency to sometimes leave guns lying around and ammunition lying around. You know what I'm talking about? So, you know, if the police can be considered responsible enough with the right checks and training to have a Glock 19, then I know that certainly at my club, everybody there would be more than responsible enough too, and most of them are actually a lot more responsible. So yeah, you should have that. Samuel H says, easiest way to get permissions. Yeah, well, I did do a video on this. Again, it's a difficult one, isn't it, to answer. Networking, people you know. If you live in the city, that's more difficult. So I would say you need to put yourself in a situation where you're going to come across landowners who might give you, you know, access to their land, really. Somebody underneath, Gus Cameron, actually said helping out on farms is an easy one, and yeah, you're probably right there. If you know, if you offer to help somebody out, you'd be surprised how far that goes. I've known guys, for instance, before, to be driving along, and they've seen a farmer who's, like, you know, had some stuff fall off his wagon or whatever, and it needs a bit of help, and they pulled over and helped them out, and they get a permission out of it. You know, goodwill really does go a long way, and if you can demonstrate that you've got goodwill towards people, they're often happy to help you. If you live in the city, it is difficult. I can't deny that, but you just got to get involved. You've got to meet people in the community and network, basically. Branday asks, what is the most memorable shooting trip you've been on? Well, yeah, I would say, certainly in recent times, would be the time I went feral pigeon shooting, a few fields over that way behind me, and it's I think I did a video called Shooting Feral Pigeons, and I got 41 ferals and I think 3 crows that day. It wasn't the most memorable shooting in the sense of most amazing shots or most amazing sporting shots or anything like that. It was a bit like shooting fish in a barrel. But what was amazing was the sheer quantity of birds that were around at that time, and the fact also that I shot 3 birds with 1 shot, and I shot 2 birds with 1 shot twice. And that's something I'd never done before and never achieved again, and yet I managed to do it 3 times in 1 day. So that might give you an idea of what that day was like. So by all means, go and have a look through my pigeon shooting videos and have a look. That was a good day. That was quite, yeah, it was very memorable. Fish Tropics asks, at what age do you fire a gun and what was your first kill? Keep up the good work. That's a difficult one because, you know, essentially guns were around me as a child growing up from like year 0 really, so I can't really remember the first time I fired a gun. I remember from the age of maybe 7, something like that, going on holiday to Perth in Scotland and us having a shooting competition. And my brother, who's very competitive, who was a bit older then, he would have been 9, and he was doing a bit more than me, he needed glasses at the time, and it really annoyed him because I was shooting much better than him, and he kind of stropped about it a few times. So, yeah, in terms of the first thing I shot though, I can't even really remember, to be honest. I don't know, like probably a feral pigeon. There's a farm near here that as boys, me and my brother used to sort of wander around the barns and shoot stuff, and the landowner who used to live there used to refer to us as the terrorists. Whichever one of us it was, we were the terrorists. And yeah, we used to shoot stuff around there, so it was probably a feral pigeon, something like that. Kieran Davey, what is your dream gun? Again, I mean, no one gun does everything, so, but you know, if you put it in the perspective of what I'm likely to use a gun for, it would probably be something like a Blaser RA, because I love how compact they are. I love the fact that the trigger mechanism is also the magazine, so it kind of shortens the whole gun a lot. You can change the barrels, and I love the straight pull design, and they're quite funky. The stocks and stuff on them are quite funky. So I would love a Blaser, but obviously it's a lot of money. So yeah, probably a Blaser. But then, you know, I mean, other than that, I mean, Christ, I'd love a Colt Python, you know, revolver. I'd love a Colt Detective Special, which is almost like the mini version of that. I'd love any kind of really nice 1911. Beretta 92 would be nice. So that's just like the handguns, and then obviously, you know, with AR-15s, well, I mean, there's so much choice out there, isn't there? Really. AKs, I wouldn't say I was a big fan of AKs. We have an AK at my local club, straight pull. We have an AR-15 too, but the AK being straight pull, it's not really a very nice gun to shoot. They're not. Yeah, AKs aren't very refined. The stocks tend to be really short, which I know can be remedied, but they are quite short. You tend to be like really close to the receiver when you're shooting them because the sights are so far away, and they're just and the cartridge is really big and loopy, and I'm not a fan of AKs if I'm honest. But yeah, anything AR, I would quite like to have a go with it as well. So that's that really. Ash Topham asks, can you tell the aunties of YouTube why we shoot pigeons? Nobody seems to have explained. Maybe even maybe even a Facebook shout out. My Yorkshire ferreting page. Well, you didn't link your Yorkshire ferreting page, I'm afraid, Ash. So that's a bit tricky to do. But in terms of why we shoot pigeons, well, a number of reasons really. Fundamentally, I suppose, morally, is pest control. I mean, especially wood pigeon over crops. They're a huge agricultural pest. Because we've obviously in England, if you fly over England on holiday, you can see it's like a patchwork quilt. We've got no kind of wilderness anymore. You know, we've completely changed the environment. We've built houses and we've got fields and so on. And for lots of animals, that's bad. I mean, for lots of songbirds and things, there's less and less hedgerows for them to live in and that sort of thing. But wood pigeons have just like huge, just exploded in terms of the population, and that's something very specific to Britain. I mean, compared to other countries, we have a huge amount of wood pigeon, and of course those wood pigeon, not only do they eat crops and stuff, and you need to shoot them because of that, but you also need to shoot them for the health of their own population, because in isolated pockets they can get bursts of population increases, and then because of the change in the weather or whatever, then lots of them can die. They also affect and can push out other species who they're competing with, like these songbirds. So there's that aspect. Also, we eat them, and most of all, really enjoy doing it. It's good sport, and there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I mean, that's in terms of wood pigeon. Obviously there's feral pigeons and stuff as well, which are hugely problematic inside farm buildings, and crapping on things and eating stored grain and crapping on the grain, and if it's grain that's fed to animals, it can make the animals ill, and again, of course, it's fun. It's fun. That's sort of the reason. And let's be honest, if we're fundamentally honest about it, despite all these reasons, if we didn't enjoy it, we wouldn't do it. So that's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing wrong with saying that. We do enjoy it. So there we are. Ewan Burnett asks, very good on the 5,000 followers. I'm one of them. Good lad. My question: who is a better shot? Is it you or Tom? Well. Apologies, I keep having to light my cigarettes, but roll-ups go out. Yeah, basically what it comes down to is Tom is, and I hate to say this through gritted teeth, Tom is a much better shot than I am with a shotgun. I think it's not purely because of just natural ability, it's partly because his eyes seem to work. I've had eye dominance issues. He doesn't have this freakishly large head and long neck, so his guns tend to fit him a bit better. So Tom is, I mean, we went clay shooting last weekend, and he kicked my ass, to be honest. With a rifle, though, I would say, and I think Tom would agree, I am a much better shot with a rifle than him, in terms of the technique of kind of the breathing and just getting on target, and also even with smoothbore muzzle loading rifles that I've shot before, I've managed to get quite good groups because I'm quite good at judging. They call it Kentucky holdover or whatever it is, or Kentucky windage. I'm good at judging where it's going, so I'm aiming here and it's hitting here, and then pulling across and kind of getting it right. So yeah, I would say for me, rifles, Tom, shotguns, basically. Let's have a look. Hayden Winters asks, I personally think there's too many red kites about now, and we should have one full month to cull them back. What did you think of this? I'll be honest, I don't know enough about it. I don't see many red kites around by me. If there's a need, yeah, sure, issue a general license for an area. If it's not a need, then don't do it. Wolf607 says, do you have any other hobbies? Yeah, I guess so. I work in computers, although, and I used to be really into IT, like majorly into IT when I was younger. I used to sort of do loads of stuff with that, really, and I still work in IT. I'm not so into that anymore, really. I don't know, you get a bit jaded as you approach middle age. But what I do really like is arguing. Any of you guys who follow some of my posts probably gather that. I try and hold back a bit on the comments and things on here, because everyone's got a right to an opinion, etc, etc. But I do enjoy a good debate. I like talking about politics, I like talking about current affairs, world issues, religion, all that sort of thing. I try and kind of not talk about that stuff too much on my channel, because I try and keep things focused. So there we are. SWAT Rag 1999. If you could have one hunting trip with no price limits, what would it be? I would like to shoot in Africa. A friend at work, her son went shooting in Africa, and it was, I can't remember where now, but he paid something like £2,000, and that was for like the lot. That covered his flights, that covered 2 weeks bed and board. Where he was shooting, he was given guns and ammunition to do that. There were various animals he was allowed to shoot, like basically deer and like warthogs or something. No, not lions or anything like that. I mean, I wouldn't particularly be interested in shooting those sorts of game, but even drinks and the whole lot, to be honest. So, yeah, I would love that. I'd like, again, as I said before, I'd like to shoot in Australia. I'd like to go and shoot in Texas, shoot pigs in Texas. That looks like good fun. So, yeah, I'm open to offers. Anyone wants to invite me, I'm more than happy. So, yeah. Alex Austin asks, who are you likely to vote for in the Conservative Leadership Contest 2019? Yeah, well, unfortunately, probably nobody at the moment, because mostly because I'm not a member of the Conservative Party, so I wouldn't be eligible to vote for their leadership, but also I don't think there's anybody in the Conservative Party really, perhaps Boris Johnson, but there isn't really anybody with any kind of gravitas or personality who's like statesman-like. I mean, if you look at David Cameron's a bit of a joke, really, to be honest. I mean, he doesn't really have any actual opinions of his own, and everybody else in the Conservative Party is much the same at the moment. But it's not just the Conservative Party, the Labour Party have got the same thing. I mean, you only have to look at Ed Miliband in the last election. I mean, he was laughable really as a candidate, and a lot of people don't like Tony Blair, and I wasn't, I'm not by any means a fan of Tony Blair, but one thing you have to hand to Tony Blair is that he had gravitas. People listened to him. He was statesmanly. He was somebody who, was good at being a politician. I think at the moment, as I said, on whether you're left or right, there's very, very little choice. As I said, Boris Johnson, maybe, but probably not, if I'm honest. And it's embarrassing when you see someone like David Cameron and he's chatting away with Barack Obama. Again, I'm not a fan of Barack Obama particularly, but he is highly intelligent. He is statesmanly. He does have gravitas. He is somebody people want to hear talk. We just don't have anyone like that. It's almost like we need a new generation of politicians. So it's pretty lame at the moment, if I'm honest. Sonu Dilly asks, which non-lead cartridge is best? Some people will not eat pigeons which have been shot with lead because they think they will get lead poisoning. Are there any good effective alternatives? Well, I don't know, if I'm honest. I don't shoot with steel. But when I have done, Ely's VIP steel seems very good. It tested very well. It patterned very well. I don't know what it's made out of, if I'm honest. But if it was me, I'd probably stick with Ely. I found Ely make very, very good cartridges. But I'm sure there are other people out there, and in fact, you can see a couple of people who replied would probably give you more information than I can. So, Alison George asks, what is the longest shot you have taken with your 22 LR and air rifle? When you say longest shot, I assume you mean in terms of killing something. A video I did a few videos back, I shot a rabbit at about 70 metres. That's probably as far out as I've gone out with the rimfire so far in terms of, as I said, killing something. With the air rifle, I think about 40 metres, something like that, just over 40 metres. And that was at Collared Dove, I think. If you look at my air gunning videos, there's, if you're familiar with them, there's a bit around the barns where there's a field that goes out and there's like a trailer that's about 50 metres out, and I kind of got a bit closer and shot a dove off there, and it was about just over 40 metres, so that's probably about how far it was. I can't pronounce this, so I'll just spell it. SPQR asks, hi, please advise where the long furry mop used in the cleaning... What? Where the long furry mop used in the cleaning... Oh, okay, was it obtained from? I just bought a Meg mop, which is good, but not as good or as luxuriant as yours. Thanks for the great videos. Showing cartridges especially was good and informative. I think I bought it off Amazon, if I'm honest. I said when you say the sort of mop, you mean the long stick with the fur all the way down. Yeah, I think I bought that off Amazon. They're fairly standard, to be honest. I think it was Bisley. I think it's okay. I think as long as you've got patches which work well for you, you probably don't even need a mop really. I mean, it's only there to sort of polish the bore, but I tend to find by the time I use it, it's already pretty clean. But yeah, Bisley's a good choice. Stephen Lewis asks, do you think a Browning B525 Grade 1 would be a good gun for a 15-year-old as I'm saving up for one? Yeah, they're great guns, but fundamentally, does it fit you? Mine doesn't fit me very well, and one of my next investments, because you know people talking about me getting another gun, one of my next investments will be to have my Browning fitted, and I will have to see how doable that is, whether they have to cut a piece of wood out of stock or if they can just tilt it somehow or whatever. So don't get too hung up when you're buying a shotgun particularly on the brand. I mean, of course, a Browning 525 in terms of the engineering is exceptionally good. I mean, they're very well engineered shotguns. I would argue, actually, I would say they're much better quality engineering than you get from Beretta. I think Beretta are actually, well, I don't think the tolerances are anything like as high as with the Browning, but you know, they're all very good guns. But the fundamental thing is, as I said, is does it fit you? And if it doesn't fit you, it doesn't matter how good the gun is, you won't hit anything with it. So, James Hayes, would you do a gun giveaway? No, no, I wouldn't. It's far too much, far too many problems that you could encounter with that. So no, I'm not doing that. Miles Coward. Well, I say that no. If a manufacturer approached me with a gun to give away and they were willing to sort out the paperwork and what have you, then yeah, I guess. But other than that, no. Miles Coward asks, which type of shotgun do you prefer? Single barrel, double barrel, semi-auto, or pump, and which gauge? Cheers. I think somebody else has already asked me that. More or less asked me that. But as I said, double barrel over and under would do for me for almost every situation. Practical shooting, pump. And the gauge, 12 gauge, obviously, is the most versatile, cheapest, 12 gauge. So, Jordan Walsh, best beginner's clay pigeon shotgun. Yes, these questions are getting a little bit samey now, but like I said, whatever fits you. If it fits you and you can swing it and you can hit stuff with it, it's a good gun. So the answer is really go and have a lesson. Go and have a lesson, find out the sort of gun that would be suitable. The instructor will give you a lot of information on that, and then go and try some. Go and feel what it fits like, and can you get your face behind the gun? Can you see flat down the rib? That's what it's really about. If you can do that, then it'll fit you. Harry Plant asks, could you please explain the best way of setting up a decoy pattern? Okay. Basically, you need it. Well, I mean, that's the best way. It depends on circumstances to a lot of the time, but you need to know which way the wind's blowing, and you know, if it's blowing from behind you or like away from you, then the pigeons are going to come towards you. So in that instance, you need to set up the patterns, or you know, you always set up the pattern in a sort of horseshoe. Don't make it too uniform, because if you do, then of course it looks a bit unnatural and you know could put them off. But if you have a horseshoe like that, the idea is that they come from this direction and land in this space in the middle of the horseshoe, and all the birds in this horseshoe are facing into the wind. So if I'm here and the wind's going that way, the horseshoe needs to be like that in front of me, and they'll be coming towards me and landing in it like that. But of course, if the wind's across you like this, then the horseshoe needs to be like this, and so they come in and land like that. And typically that tends to be how I set it up. But you know, you just need to play it by ear really, because sometimes you might ideally want to be in a certain position because of the wind direction, but where you want to go, there's a ditch or something, or you know, there's lots of things to consider really. But basically a horseshoe, and you always make sure that they're facing into the wind, because pigeons won't really land with the wind because they tend to fall over. So bear that in mind. Chris G4270 asks, have a good holiday, my old. I'm left-handed, left eye dominated. Why do I always struggle to buy the guns I really want? We need more left-handed and ambidextrous guns in the market. I recently looked into the FX Wildcat in 2.2 FAC. Not making a lefty, FAC coming out soon. That's another gun I can't own. Keep up the great bids. Yeah, that wasn't really a question. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I write left-handed, and I shoot right. I shoot right-handed, but I'm, you know, I do understand problems with left-handed things generally. But we're a minority, aren't we? So you can do about it, to be honest. Alex B asks, what brand of 22LR do you find works best in your T-bolt? I found the Winchester PowerPoint 40 grain works best in mine, but I'm interested in your view. Well, to be honest, CCI I found work very well in my gun. CCI Subsonics or CCI Minimags work really well, but it shoots most rounds pretty decently, if I'm honest. But yeah, CCI can't go wrong. But yeah, if whatever works for you, really, just try it. Theo Price. No, I've just said that. Oh no, is it? Oh, hang on. Yeah, sorry. Theo Price asks, what's the largest caliber rifle you own, and what is the biggest animal that you've shot? Well, it depends what you mean by caliber, because I can put slugs in my shotgun, so I don't even know what caliber that would be, but pretty damn big one. But other than that, I've only got a 2.2 long rifle at the moment, so 2.2. In terms of the biggest thing I've shot, well, I've shot a fox, so that's fairly big. I think I've shot anything bigger than that. So yeah, fox. Jonas Muster asks, can a German person come to you and do some shooting with you? And yes, I have the German hunting license. A nice videos and great channel. I guess so, maybe. Give us a shout, possibly. It depends. I'm quite a busy guy, so you know, if it's feasible at the time, then yeah, maybe. Annabelle Catherine Chambers asks, hello. Well done, Sam. Some fabulous work you put into your channel and in addressing your fans' needs. Some great questions here, so we look forward to seeing your responses. Cheers, Annabelle. That's very sweet, but yeah, I don't really have an answer for that. But yeah, cool. Thank you. Freddie Walton. Hi, 2 questions. Firstly, I've noticed over your videos your shooting's improved. So, have you had any lessons, or do you shoot clays for practice? Secondly, do you have a preferred cartridge to use on pigeons? Thanks to keep up the good videos. I haven't had any lessons, and I plan to have a lesson very soon on account of the fact that I need to get my shotgun adjusted, because it's very. I do even though my shooting's improved, I do still have a bit of a problem with it. If I kind of get in the zone, it's, you know, I shoot very well, but it's me very much accommodating for the lack of fit. It's not really as it should be, and I think if it was as it should be, my shooting would be even better. In terms of getting better generally, yeah, my shooting has definitely got better, and that's just really just shooting pigeons. If I'm honest, I don't shoot clays very often. I did do last Sunday, but it's not something I do a great deal. I find it hard psychologically almost to kind of connect with a lump of clay the way I can do with a real pigeon. But yeah, it's just practice, really. Boomstick asks, alright. The zombie apocalypse happens. 1 knife, 1 rifle and 1 shotgun. Which ones, and if you can be bothered, why? Not a serious question by any means, but I'm not a very serious person. I noticed that although good, most of the questions below are related to everyday and practical realities of shooting, so I thought I'd throw something a little bit more trivial and fun into the mix. Okay. Well, I don't know. 1 shotgun, my SXP would be ideal. It's got 11 shot capacity, slugs in it. Yeah, that would work. 1 rifle, well, again, I mean, it depends if you're talking about UK legal. If you're talking about UK legal, then, I don't know, Southern Gun Company straight pull 30 shot mag. That's an AR-15 for those who don't know. And probably in 223, I guess. 1 knife, I don't know, whatever's as big as you can get hold of. A machete, I guess, would have attacked zombies. So, yeah, I don't know a lot about zombie killing, if I'm honest. But, yeah, there you go. Country Life asks, what editing software do you use? iMovie. iMovie 9 generally. I don't really like iMovie 10, so iMovie 9. So there we are. Ian Walsh asks, how old are you? I know, how old are you? How are you? Do you mean how old am I? Because how am I? I'm okay. How old am I is I'm 36. I was 36 last week, actually. So, Llewellyn Ross asks, congrats. What part of the country do you live and what area do you shoot in? And what clothing brands do you recommend for hunting? Okay, well, I live in the West Midlands and in Worcestershire. Clothing brands, I don't know really. As long as it covers your body, I wouldn't worry too much. Don't buy anything that's like, really jazzy colours. Camo's good, but you don't need camo really. To be honest, I think it's overplayed hugely. All this real tree stuff going around. Frankly, I don't think camo actually, to be honest, makes really any difference at all. If you just wear something green, and more importantly than anything, just don't move. To be honest, in hide you could be pretty much naked as long as you don't move. That's the mistake a lot of people make. And if you are moving about, camo doesn't really make any difference at all. John White asks, "Hi Sam, I have a hang up on what chokes to use for different game. I know you use 1/2 and 3/4 chokes for everything, and I'm currently using 1/4 and 1/4 for pigeons and pheasant alike. Do you think I should tighten up a little bit, 1/2 and 1/2? I'm not one for changing chokes for every time I go out. Thanks, matey." Well, I mean, it's up to you really. To be honest, if you're worrying about chokes too much, it's probably because you're not shooting very well. And if you're not shooting very well, chokes aren't really going to help you. But yeah, I would say 1/2 and 3/4 is ideal. Only because if you've got 1/2 on the first barrel and 3/4 on the second barrel, logic dictates that the second barrel is going to be the second shot, and the second shot is probably going to be at the bird when it's going further away. So you would probably want a tighter choke. But really, I would say just go for 1/2 and 3/4, unless you're shooting geese or something, and then obviously that goes into a different ball game then, because you're going to be using like 3-inch cartridges and so on. So, then I guess you play it by ear. I mean, it comes down to how good a shot you are really. If you're going at 30 yards, to be honest, cylinder bore would be fine. So it doesn't make that much difference. Outdoorsman asks, "What do you think is the best way to get into shooting? What's the best way to find the owner of a land you've seen rabbits and pigeons on? Thanks." Well, the best way to get into shooting is to go to a club and do some shooting, whether it's a playground, an air gun club, something like that. And that kind of carries on also into, essentially finding permissions, because that's what you're asking me. If you go to a playground, then there's a good chance you'll meet someone who may be able to either help you themselves or put you in touch with somebody who's got some land, or say, go and speak to that guy over there. He's got a farm, so do that really. James Baker asks, "Rabbit shot, especially with my 12 gauge shotgun, sometimes with punctured guts and bruised meat, etc. How quickly should you clean them? And there is any better way of doing so, such as soaking in salt water, as I've done this before when prepping and defrosted?" Yeah, if you shoot a rabbit with a shotgun, you need to get the guts out of it like instantly. And if it's a bit close up, I hate to say it, you may find that it's no good at all, and you just need to bin it or feed it to the ferrets. I've had rabbits with guts just literally hanging out after I've shot them. If you shoot them at a sensible distance and you use, let's say, 6.5 shots, something like that, it's not too bad. What a lot of people might not take into account is a lot of the time when you're shooting stuff on the ground with a shotgun, you tend to shoot a bit high, which can be annoying because you can miss, but it can also be good because if you're clipping them with the bottom of the pattern rather than hitting them full on with the pattern, you'll make less of a mess of them. But yeah, you should be getting the guts out pretty much instantly, because yeah, if you pierce those guts, they need to be out. And then after that, I don't know, just rinse it under the tap. It'll be fine, because you're going to cook it, aren't you? So it's not that big a deal. Lewis Berry asks, "What do you think about hair coursing, Ben?" I don't really know a lot about hair coursing, to be honest. But yeah, I don't have a problem with it as long as there's enough hairs around. I know Basque have got a voluntary season for hares, because even though there's no seasons legally, in certain parts of the country people are aware that they're quite rare, and so don't hunt them too much. And then in other parts of the country there's an abundance, so they do. So yeah, I mean, just common sense, isn't it, really, to be honest. Oliver Lothian asks, "What air rifle would you be taking out for rabbits at range without a hefty price tag?" Well, it depends whether you're talking about a Section 1 air gun, or you're talking about a normal 12-foot-pound air gun. To be honest, if it's a pre-charged pneumatic, they're all pretty much the same, if I'm honest. You can't buy a bad pre-charged rifle now. They're all very accurate and great guns. So whatever, really, to be honest. FAC, I mean, I don't know. There is less choice, but again, they're all pretty good. So you can't go wrong, if I'm honest, as long as, if it's brand new especially. If it's not brand new, then obviously be aware of the fact it might need servicing, it might be leaking, it might have problems, so just be aware when you buy, really. Cameron Daly, will you be going to the Midland Game Fair? Don't know, I might be. Watch this space. Oscar DeLucia says, is your air rifle over the legal limit, which requires a licence? If so, how many foot-pounds? No, it's not. It's under 12 foot-pounds. And if I'm honest, I don't really see a point in an air rifle over 12 foot-pounds, because the only place that it would be safe to shoot such a gun would be somewhere where you could shoot a rimfire, in which case just use a rimfire. Why would you? What's the point? What's the point in having a very powerful air gun? I don't really get it, if I'm honest. I can understand from an American perspective, because in America it can be often illegal to shoot within city limits, and you know, an air gun can fill that role. But in the UK, I don't really see the point, to be honest. Matthew Chalice asks, would you recommend your Browning, and what do you think of the newer models? Can you do a video on your dad's AYA, as there are little or no videos about on the AYA on YouTube? Yeah, I could do a video on the AYA. Yeah, I could do that. In terms of Browning, yeah, I'd recommend it. It's a great gun, but like I said before, it doesn't matter what the gun is, it's got to fit you. But yeah, the engineering, the quality of the engineering is amazing. I mean, my gun has had thousands of rounds through it now, and it's still stiff to open like it's new. It really is. It really is like new still. So yeah, I would recommend that. And the newer models, yeah, I've looked at the 75. Looks very nice too. It's much the same, really. A bit prettier, but much the same. So Toby Moon, how old were you when you started shooting? Again, I've covered this before. I don't know. I have a memory of shooting competitions in Scotland when I was 7, but I was probably much younger than that, to be honest. I can't remember. Mark Rose, which SG cartridges and why? I don't shoot SG. I guess I could do in competition. Into the brand, I don't know. Ely, some sort. I generally always buy Ely. The gun shop I go to, though, I can get slugs and things. They have every kind of cartridge you could imagine, but pretty much they just have Ely. And Ely always tend to be very good quality, so I stick with them. Wolf607, how long have you been hunting and shooting for? Kind of just covered that, to be honest, from when I was very young. The Hunter TV, well done, buddy. Have you ever shot a fox, and how? And have you ever been on a driven shoot? And if so, what quarry? I've not been on. I like your videos, by the way. Hunter TV, very good, nice production values. I've never been on a driven shoot. No, I'd like to, and that might change soon. As I said, especially if I go to Romania next year. Have I shot a fox? Yes, I have, and I shot it with a shotgun, and yeah, did the job fine. Caleb 10985. What top 5 tips would you give to a 14-year-old teen applying for an FAC? Wow. Oh, I think I've looked at your channel before, Caleb, and you had a few problems, didn't you? Wow. I don't know about 5 tips. But certainly, of course, I would say apply for a shotgun licence first. That sort of goes without saying. In terms of applying for an FAC, then it really depends on what your plans are. I mean, there's a lad at my club, and he must be he's younger than that. I think he's about 12, and he shoots 30 caliber. So you know he knows his stuff, and he's a good shot. If you're a member of a gun club, then yeah, I mean, do that. You won't have any problems getting whatever you want, really, if you join a gun club. Other than that, just be aware of having land to shoot on. But fundamentally, especially for you, Caleb, because I know you've had some problems, and if I'm honest, I'm not going to go into details because I don't want to talk about your personal matters, but you have been quite badly discriminated against by the police in quite what I think is an obscene way, actually. And if you had joined BASC before you'd applied, and everybody should have joined BASC, 14 years old or not, they, to be honest, would have torn the police to ribbons for the way they treated you. So what I suggest you do with the problems you've had is join BASC, wait for maybe 6 months or a year and reapply. And if they try and pull that shit on you again, their lawyers will go mental, and so they won't get away with it. Alright? You know what I'm talking about. Ash Topham. Forget my last question, please. It might be too late. I have a short and sweet question. What's your favourite aspect of ferreting? I do a hell of a lot of ferreting. I'd like to know your thoughts. My favourite aspect of ferreting? Well, I guess my favourite aspect of ferreting is when the rabbit bolts and I catch it in the net and I snap its neck. That's kind of the whole point. I love the fact with ferreting that it's so clean and it's very pure, because the rabbit either gets away completely scot-free without any problems at all, or it's definitely dead. And when it is dead, the meat is completely unharmed. It's great for eating. It's great for skinning. It's a great way of hunting. I'm not a fan of shooting rabbits that you've bolted with ferrets. I think it's showing off. It's dangerous and it's inefficient. And so to be honest, I don't see the point. I say that, I'll probably eat my words in 6 months and I'll be doing it for a laugh. But yeah, it's not, with shotguns, I don't see the point. It really is just entertainment at that point. It's not really proper hunting. Ferreting with Persnexes is really, really good, really efficient. Although don't do it unless there's an R in the month. Richard Jacks asks, as an ex-serving soldier and massive pro-hunting shooting campaigner, what's your views on our gun laws in general? And just on a personal note, would you have changed or amended within the law for us to have some different culture mindset around guns? For example, your thoughts on the Guide on Fire Licensing Law published in March. I haven't seen that, if I'm honest. Although I know that they're supposedly about to sort of rejig firearms licensing laws to kind of make them a bit more sensible. But in terms of different culture and mindset around guns, I'm not quite sure what you're asking, if I'm honest. I mean, in terms of gun laws in general, I think they definitely need amending. I think that rimfire should be Section 2, and I think Section 1 you should be able to have pretty much whatever you want. I've kind of already sort of spoken about this really, but fundamentally, any problems with guns should be about stopping people who shouldn't have guns getting guns, not just letting them have guns but then trying to restrict the guns they have access to, because that's pretty stupid, because it doesn't solve the problem, does it? It doesn't really address that. So when you hear people like Mike Yardley going on about black guns and stuff, and it's just like, we're not addressing the problem, are you? I mean, it's pretty stupid, really. If that's the best you can do, is think, oh no, we'll just stop them having access to this kind of gun because it's particularly dangerous, without ever considering a way of stopping a loony getting hold of any guns. You're already fighting a losing battle, aren't you, really? And you're not addressing the problem. GR456 asks, are you going to any game fairs this year? I may be going to the Midland Game Fair, I'll have to see. Funky Wingnut asks, which Section 2 cheapy shotgun could you buy for under £150? Ooh, God, that's a stretch, mate, to be honest. Certainly for £200 you could probably get an AYA second hand. An AYA are great little guns if you're a side-by-side guy. But yeah, they're good. Fendland the Air Gunner, what is your most memorable shot? Again, I'll probably say this is from the Feral Pigeon shooting video where I shot 3 birds with 1 shot. That was pretty epic. I wouldn't say it was necessarily a skillful shot, but it was very memorable. Shooter Compo asks, what's your views on large commercial driven pheasant partridge shoots upon which they have 200 birds on each drive and bags of 600 a day? Do you feel this takes the sport out of pheasant shooting compared to a small friendly shoot? Probably, but who cares? So what? We have thousands and thousands of chickens, or hundreds of thousands, millions of chickens being lined up in slaughterhouses, having hung upside down, having their throats cut for us to eat. So who cares? I mean, any kind of pheasant shooting encourages conservation. It means land set aside. It also means that species are being introduced into the countryside, which is, in terms of pheasant and partridge, especially partridge, because it's originally a native species. It's a great thing, and it's great for everybody. It creates employment. It's wonderful. Whether something's sporting or not, you need to get out of this mindset, because that is your entertainment. Your entertainment is irrelevant to the morals of what you're doing. That might be something you enjoy. I had this on a group on Facebook I'm on recently, where this guy was complaining about some guy shooting pigeons on the ground, and it's like, well, if that pigeon is being treated humanely, it doesn't matter a bollocks, to be honest, whether it was flying and it was a cracking shot or not. That's just your entertainment. That's got nothing to do with the welfare of that animal. So it doesn't matter. Chris G says, oh, nearly at the end. Chris G asks, have a cool holiday, me old. Hang on. You've already asked this, mate. Double post. Alec Heaney would dearly love to shoot 303, just on long range, not hunting. No idea how much, or where. I'm in central London, any pointers would be appreciated. Well, I would suggest, Alec, you go and speak to Callum at English Shooting, because he lives in London too, and he shoots at Bisley and he shoots at a couple of other places. I think he even says he's got a club just next to London Bridge, apparently. And pretty much any club you go to, you will find Lee Enfield 303s, because they are ubiquitous. You know, they're literally everywhere. And certainly my club, you are not allowed to become a full member until you've cut your teeth shooting a Lee Enfield 303, and they must have at least 5 to 10 rifles at the club as club guns, and yeah, they're great to shoot, great fun. Can knock you about a bit if you're not prepared for it, but yeah, you will find most clubs will have a 303, and if they don't, somebody there will, because they are literally everywhere. But get over to Callum at English Shooting, tell him that I sent you, and he will, I'm sure, sort you out. In fact, he does say anybody who goes and meets up with him, he will take them to Bisley. So give him a shout, because he'll take you up to Bisley. Gamekeeper75 asks, which pigeon cartridges do you shoot, and what pigeon cartridges would you recommend? Well, I shoot at the moment Ely Pigeon 6.5. Right then, yeah, sorry about that. Got really interrupted by the memory card getting full, which kind of is a bit indicative of how long this video is going to be. So, of all 4 of you who are still watching, I'll just finish off. I've got a couple more questions. I think I was halfway through Gamekeeper 75's question, asking me about what cartridges I use and recommend. So as I said, I use Ely Pigeon 6.5 shot, although I think they're being replaced with, well, they've been replaced with some number 6, just Ely Pigeon or something like that. But you know, I would suggest it's not a great idea to get ridiculously heavy loads. A lot of people feel tempted to use, like, you know, 34 gram or even 36 gram loads, and it just knocks the birds about. It causes you loads more recoil than you need, and that makes you shoot worse. So really, it's always a question with cartridges of them being just enough, not more than you need, because otherwise, you know, you're wasting money, you're damaging what you're shooting, so the meat's no good, and you'll miss loads. So that's what I would suggest. And lastly, Sonu Dilly asks, hi Sam, what's a good reason to have a FAC PCP air rifle rather than a 2.2 rimfire? I've been told shooting a bird in trees is a good reason. Personally, I think that it's the worst reason, because it's irresponsible. All projectiles need safe backstops. I agree. Birds can be taken down at 80 yards with a 12 foot-pound PCP. Well, yeah, I would kind of disagree with that. Rimfires can be silenced, yeah. So there's no reason anyone would be allowed to get an FAC for a PCP. Got any ideas how one would go about getting a 30 cal FAC PCP? Thanks. Well, one thing I would take issue with what you've said there is where you've said, so there is no reason anyone should be allowed to get an FAC air rifle. And I would say that any civilised society shouldn't be asking, you know, why do you want something? They should be asking, why shouldn't you have something? So if somebody wants a 30 foot-pound or 40 foot-pound air rifle because they enjoy shooting that and they're doing it responsibly, then really there's no reason why they shouldn't have it. In terms of practicalities, though, yeah, I kind of agree. With a lot, what people don't realise is that with an air rifle, when you're getting to FAC power, you're increasing the grain of the projectile you're shooting, principally because FAC air rifles shouldn't go beyond, unless they are, well, unless there are some exceptions, but generally speaking, they shouldn't go beyond the speed of sound. Because if they do go beyond the speed of sound, what happens is, as the pellet's going through the air, it creates a sonic boom behind it. But relatively quickly, after it's left the muzzle, the sonic boom catches up with the projectile, because although it's going fast, it's not going that fast. And as the sonic boom passes the projectile, it tumbles and it causes terrible accuracy. It causes the pellet to keyhole. So when you get to the realms of, say, 40, 50, 60 foot-pounds of energy in a FAC air gun, you want to have a heavier and heavier and heavier pellet to slow the speed down, because the perfect speed for an air rifle, no matter what the power, is around about 900 feet per second. You don't really want any higher than that. So consequently, if you were going to use a FAC air rifle to shoot birds out of trees, then, you know, if your mentality is, oh, it's just going faster, but it's the same grain as a 12 foot-pound air gun, you could argue that that's, you know, that's fairly safe when it eventually reaches Earth. But the point is, you won't do that. You will use a much heavier pellet, which will be much more, almost equivalent of a powder-burning rifle, and that projectile will be quite dangerous when it hits the ground. So yeah, I would say you shouldn't shoot FAC air guns into trees. I think 12 foot-pounds is fine. Anything more than that, it's really irresponsible, if I'm honest. But yeah, in terms of using them, well, yeah, I mean 80 yards with a 12 foot-pound air gun, really, mate, you're not going to, you know, I mean, I guess it's possible to shoot a rabbit at that range with a 12 foot-pound air gun, but it's very, very, very unlikely. You'd be pretty incredibly good at shooting and lucky to do that. But yeah, basically, for me, in England, air rifles, 12 foot-pound air rifles, are brilliant tools because you can shoot them in the air, because you can shoot them in places like barns and stuff like that, where, you know, you wouldn't want something more powerful that would damage things and go flying off into the countryside and so on. They're great for that. Anything beyond that, where you would be thinking about getting an FAC air rifle, there are exceptions, of course, but the majority of the time, you'd be far better off getting a rimfire. Apart from anything else, it's a hell of a lot cheaper. I mean, a rimfire with subsonic ammo is a little bit more powerful than the Daystate Wolverine 303 FAC air rifle that you can get, but it's also a lot more accurate because it's, you know, it's a proper tool for the job. And if you get a Daystate Wolverine, you fire 6 shots and you've got to refill the bloody thing. So it's just, you know, it's a gimmick, isn't it, really, to be honest. Rimfires are considerably cheaper, they're considerably more consistent, they're more accurate, they're more reliable, they're just better. So I personally don't see a point, but like I said, you know, if you want an FAC air rifle, have at it. I mean, you know, whatever floats your boat, to be honest. So that's it then. You know, as I said, despite the memory card running out, I think it's gone reasonably well. I think some of the questions were a little bit repetitions of each other, so I hope, you know, I hope you haven't found this too dull. But I thought it was a good way for me to kind of connect with you guys and let you know what I've been up to. As I said, I've just got back from Israel about a week ago. I've had a few other things on, so I've only just had a chance to record this, but I know a few of you will have been waiting for it. So yeah, I should hopefully be out again this weekend with the rimfire. Hopefully I'll knock down a bunny or something, so keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, like and subscribe.